So good morning, or whatever time of day it is for you, and welcome to Philosophy Live. I'm Graham Blackburn from the Scottish branch of the School of Philosophy and Economic Science in Edinburgh. Thank you for joining me. We can learn a lot from the extraordinary flowering of what became known as Christian mysticism within Western Europe during later medieval times. Previous Philosophy Lives have considered several of those associated with this movement, including Hildegard of Bingen, Julian of Norwich, and Teresa of Avila, each of whom you may notice were women, who were particularly prominent amongst the so-called mystics. Today I'd like to take a look at another from this group, one about whom we know almost nothing, except that he was a man, since at the end of his best-known tract, he dispenses God's blessings and mine onto his correspondent, and such blessings could be dispensed only by a priest, and therefore a man. The work has become known as the Cloud of Unknowing. The anonymous author was writing to a young man who had asked for guidance on how to pray, or more precisely, the practice of contemplation, which was closer to what today we call meditation. The language was Middle English, and scholars have deduced from the dialect and certain references within the work that it was probably written in the English Midlands in the second half of the 14th century. Otherwise, we can only speculate. Some say the author may have been a Carthusian monk, others not. He may simply have been a country parson. We just don't know. The medieval mystic tradition drew heavily on the works of a certain Dianius, writing about the early 6th century, who, in combining Christian theology with Neoplatonic philosophy, had equated Plato's transcendent form of the good, or as the Neoplatonists had it, the one, with the Christian God. For centuries, this Dionysius was thought to have been a first-century convert of St. Paul, and therefore an authoritative Christian voice. By the time of the Cloud of Unknowing, its author was referring to Dionysius as Saint Denis. Mainstream Christianity had commonly worshipped God's positive attributes, such as life, love, light, and being, although to Dionysius these were merely divine names. He wrote that if we call this super-essential mystery by the name of God, or life, or being, or light, or word, we conceive of nothing else than the powers that stream therefrom to us. The divine itself, he taught, being utterly transcendent, cannot be known or understood. But contemplation, Dionysius wrote, lifts the soul above all things cognate with its finite nature, and there joins us unto God himself. Such thinking gave rise to what in medieval theology became known as the via negativa, the negative way, in which the mind dismisses everything which is not God, however holy it might appear, until all that is left is the divine itself. It was this path, primarily, which was followed by the medieval mystics, and which the author of The Cloud of Unknowing described. The work is divided into 75 chapters, albeit quite short ones, but I cannot hope here to give more than a brief glimpse of their content. To me, they seem full of compassion and understanding, as though the author, while having had long practice in the form of contemplation he describes, also recognized the many challenges it presents. He wrote of an inner journey to union with God by dismissing anything other than God. Let's look at a few short extracts. Lift up your heart to God with humble love, and mean God himself, and not what you get out of him. Indeed, hate to think of anything but God himself, so that nothing occupies your mind or will, but only God. Try to forget all created things that he ever made, and the purpose behind them. Let them go and pay no attention to them. And he continued, when you first begin, you find only darkness, and, as it were, a cloud of unknowing. In your will, you feel a simple, steadfast intention reaching out towards God. Do what you will, this darkness and this cloud remain between you and God, and stop you from seeing him in the clear light of rational understanding. Reconcile yourself to wait in this darkness as long as is necessary. For if you are to feel him or to see him in this life, it must always be in this cloud, in this darkness. Just as this cloud of unknowing is, as it were, above you, between you and God, so you must also put a cloud of forgetting beneath you and all creation. I mean not only the individual creatures therein, but everything connected with them. There is no exception whatever. Everything must be hidden under the cloud of forgetting. The author explains that a naked intention directed to God is all that is needed, continuing, if you want this intention summed up in a word, to retain it more easily, take a short word, preferably of one syllable, to do so. The shorter the word, the better, being more like the working of the Spirit. And fix this word fast to your heart, so that it is always there, come what may. It'll be your shield and spear in peace and war alike. With this word, you'll hammer the cloud and the darkness above you. With this word, you'll suppress all thought under the cloud of forgetting. And if you would go on to think learnedly about the significance and analysis of that same word, tell yourself that you will have it whole and not in bits and pieces. Having given further advice regarding the difficulties which tend to arise and numerous tips on how to overcome them, he writes, I shall not tell you any more dodges for the present. For if you are given grace to try these out, I believe that you will soon be more able to teach me than I you. For though now I am teaching you, in all truth I know that I still have a very long way to go myself. So please help me as well as yourself. Now I suspect that much of the content of the cloud of unknowing and the advice dispensed within it may be somewhat puzzling to those who have never practiced any form of inner contemplation. In fact, the author said as much in his prologue, where he wrote that the book is intended for one who has for a long time been doing all that he can to come to the contemplative life by virtue of his active life. Otherwise, the book will mean nothing to him. Some parts of the work are specifically Christian, but insofar as the aim of contemplation is to set aside any thoughts about the nature of the divine, even pious religious thoughts, but rather to unite with the divine in love, its advice can be applied to many systems of inner spiritual work, whether religious or not. The use of a short word, preferably of one syllable, to, as the author puts it, hammer the cloud and the darkness above you, is remarkably similar to forms of mantra meditation, which we tend to think of as having reached the West from India in recent times. I would certainly recommend the cloud of unknowing to anyone who practices such meditation, and clearly its author was fully familiar with both the benefits and the challenges which such practice offers. The philosophy behind the cloud of unknowing is Platonic, or more precisely Neoplatonic, framed in a language and context which is Christian. But it is also universal, and it is a philosophy which may enlighten any of us intent on following a spiritual path. Its author, who had clearly travelled some way along that path, offers sage and practical advice to those already on that path, and also encourages those who are drawn in this direction to do so. So here's how philosophy might help us today. And thank you. Philosophy Live will be back next week, when we hope to see you for a new philosophical gem. Thanks again. Have a good day and enjoy your weekend.